Hi everyone, it's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy. Thanks so much for joining us today. Our Beginning Again retreat begins August 3rd. And as a promo for what you can expect when you join us, I've been introducing you to the presenters of our special event. Our Beginning Again retreat is virtual, which means you can join us from anywhere. You connect to support as you are healing after the death of a family member. And I always like to add that healing is a process. So if your family member died last week, last year, or even a few years ago, please consider joining us because we know that how you feel right now might need a little healing. And that's what our retreat is about. So let me tell you about who's joining us today. Joan is one of our certified caregiving consultants. Hi, Joan.
Good morning.
And Melinda is also one of our certified caregiving consultants, and she's also one of our legacy listeners. Good morning, Melinda.
Hi, Denise. How are you?
Good. Okay, so Joan, let's start with you. Why is this an important event for you to be a part of? And I just want to add that you were very excited from the get-go about being a part of this event. Why is it important to you?
Absolutely. Well, because I think back to my own experience. When my mom passed away, I had been caring for her long distance, and I was like 2 years into law practice, and suddenly I'm the executor. And so I had kind of two things going on at once. At the same time, I'm trying to deal with the estate. I'm also grieving and trying to deal with, you go back to work and everyone's attitude there is, it's done. What? You still need time? So I actually have two presentations. So one is what I've learned from having settled my mom's estate. And I actually left practicing corporate law and moved into estate law for a few years. And what I learned helping other people settle estates, that's one. But that transition of leaving corporate law, moving into another practice of law, that's my other presentation, because I had to create a new normal. We always talk about finding new normal, but you don't find it. Like, you have to create it. And so the other presentation talks about, like, how did I go from there to here? And how can someone else do the same thing? And it absolutely is a process.
Yes, and I think about the experience after a family member's death is closing out caregiving, and yet there's no support as we close out caregiving for all the loose ends we have to tie up with an estate, for instance, but also for our own emotions around caregiving. We have time now, which allows us, sometimes good and sometimes bad, to reflect on what happened during caregiving. And I think this idea that we're going to heal is about closing out those reflections as well and replacing them with comforting memories rather than the, you know what I should have done? I can't believe I didn't do this. The whole regret part of it, which can really haunt us. So Melinda, tell us about the importance of being a part of this event for you.
Sure. So, like Joan, I think about my own experience caring for my father, and the things that I went through after he passed away. And I was very fortunate to have, a great support network. I found a couple of really great support groups that I joined, and so I have this sense of wanting to kind of pay it forward, because the support groups that I found were local to me, and they were in-person groups. And so an event like this, where anyone can join and it's virtual and you can be anywhere in the world and get the support that you might need, was really exciting to me, to be able to kind of expand the reach and connect with people, in all different geographic areas, not being limited by geography. So that was something that was really exciting to me and why I wanted to be a part of it.
And I should mention, Melinda is one of our legacy listeners, and we're going to share information about how you can schedule a free session with Melinda and Kathy, our other legacy listener, to start the process of really putting your memories in a place where they are preserved. And you talk out your memories with Melinda, for instance. She can record your conversation because you're going to connect through Zoom. And then you have the preservation of memories around your family member who died, and also around your caregiving experience, because those memories can be quite powerful in terms of your own legacy. So that's one of our benefits for those who are joining us for our Beginning Again retreat. I'm curious, I'm going to ask this to both of you, and Joan, I'll start with you. What do you think helped you most in your healing process?
I have to say time, and really starting to focus on self-care. Those were the two things that let me start moving forward and let me start deciding what I wanted my next chapter to be. I think when I had to face some hard truths, right? And one of the hard truths was I had been using caregiving and my job and everything else as an excuse to not deal with some things. And so, okay, now caregiving's gone. That excuse is gone too. So it took, the self-care aspect was not beating myself up for not dealing with those things, but starting to dip my toe in and start looking at things, but taking my time and not trying to rush anything.
Yeah, I love that insight that caregiving sometimes is the excuse to say, I can't do that, or it doesn't matter that I'm afraid to do that. I just can't do it. It really does become this default rather than thinking about how do we want to create the life that we want, even during caregiving. And then once caregiving is over, you have this time, the voids, and it's hard to go to a default anymore. It's your choice now as to what you want to do going forward. Melinda, how about for you?
I think when I look back on what I was going through right after my dad passed away, I think about two distinct groups of people that were really kind of helpful to have around me. So I mentioned that I was lucky enough to find some support groups. And in the support groups, I found that experience of connecting with people who had a similar experience. Obviously, every caregiving experience and every grieving experience is different and unique, but there are some kind of universal aspects to it. So I felt like I wasn't alone in that process with these new people that were coming into my life through those support groups. But then on the other side of it, I was very lucky enough in that I knew a lot of my dad's friends. I mean, from when I was a child, like I just was always kind of connected with a lot of people in his world that knew him and loved him. And he had a really great group of friends. And so being able to connect with a lot of them and, hear stories that I'd never heard before and, people sharing memories and all these things that painted like a slightly different picture of him. I mean, obviously I knew him very well, but I knew him as my father, and all of these other people were giving their perspective on him as a friend or a coworker or a bandmate or things like that. So, and the other part of that too is that a lot of my friends growing up knew my father. He was just kind of like that dad that everybody knew. And so my friends too, coming through and sharing their memories from when we were kids and, oh yeah, he said this thing or he did this for us. So there was this great, gathering of these memories and stories and people being willing to share that with me and, being willing to speak about him and share those things. So it was nice to have the people that knew him really well, and then the people that didn't know him at all, but were very familiar with the grief process or, getting familiar with it because we were all kind of grieving around the same time. Those were the two things that were really, really helpful for me in the beginning, for sure.
And what's interesting in hearing you talking about receiving the stories about your father, it speaks to why you want to be a legacy listener. because you want to pass that on as well, that experience of having someone receive the memories as a legacy. And I should also mention that, Melinda, you're going to be part of one of our themes around the house. And your presentation is about clearing out the possessions. Just quickly, give us a little insight into what we can expect during your presentation.
Sure. So I was caring for my dad long distance. He was in Connecticut. I was in California. I was traveling back and forth during the time that he was sick. He was still living in my childhood home when he was sick and when he passed. So there was a lot to go through. It's actually still not done 5 years later. There are parts that are taken care of and parts that are not. And so I'm going to talk about that process. I'm going to talk about what it was like having to kind of go back to my childhood home and kind of be in this situation, what that felt like. I started kind of dealing with some of the possessions before my dad passed because he had brain cancer. And so as his kind of cognitive abilities were declining, we were really trying to make decisions with him, as he was able to, and have those discussions about some of his things. And so, it was definitely a process before, during, after caregiving. And so just kind of sharing some of the things that I went through, some of the thoughts I had, feelings about it, a couple of like practical kind of tips too, because I think those are really important. So yeah, that's what I'll be talking about.
And Joan, my last question is to you. Your presentations, two of them, are part of different themes, and one of your presentations is around our loose ends theme. And I wonder, when you look back, what was one loose end that you tied up that really made you feel like, I'm in a good space?
It ties right back to the possessions and dealing with my mom's house. So again, this long distance thing, she had actually moved from our childhood home, thankfully, because going through that would have been way worse. But she had to go through it all when she moved. So that culled things down a little bit. But she was in Florida, I'm in Delaware. We knew she had a reverse mortgage. We did not know just how underwater it was. And as I started this process, it became clear the bank was, you got 60 days. And we're changing the locks. So it was a like whirlwind going through, what do you keep? What do you don't keep? What do you do with all the rest of the stuff that you're not keeping? How do I get the stuff from Florida to Delaware? All of that. So when I got that done, that was huge. And just being out and knowing, okay, I'm not going to go down there and have the locks not working. That was a big, big relief.
In our conversations with our presenters, the underlying theme is this idea about just being honest about where we are during this process of adjusting to life after caregiving ends. And I love what both of you have said. It's because it's an honest conversation. We sometimes we just beat ourselves up. I should have had this organized better. I should have known. I should have been more proactive. And the reality is we did the best that we could. And so to show up at our retreat and just say, this is what's going on for me. There is no judgment. We're all in a place where we're just doing the best that we can. And it's so comforting to connect with people who get that really and truly you are doing the best you can. Okay, Joan, for our viewers and listeners who'd like to be in touch with you, what's your website address?
It's joanbyrnecoaching.com. And they can email me at joan@joanbyrnecoaching.com. I'm also on Facebook. My page is Joan Byrne Coaching, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay, that's awesome. Melinda, how can our viewers and listeners be in touch with you?
The best way right now to get in touch with me is via email. So it's melinda.valente@gmail.com.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, both of you. It was great to connect with you today, and I'm so looking forward to this retreat.
Thank you, Denise. I think it's going to be amazing.
Thanks.
Thanks, Denise.
Okay, thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. For more information about our retreat, go to careyearsacademy.com/retreat. We do have scholarships. If you are in a position where you feel like, I'd love to join this, but money is tight, let us know, because we are able to award a scholarship so you can attend. We do not want money to get in the way of whether or not you can attend. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm Denise Brown. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.